Welcome to my rookie guide video. It is George from Fantasy Take TV. So rookie is very important. I think you need to nail every single one because stuffing one up means maybe one trade or you got to hold them on the bench for a long time and hope they come back. So every spot in the 30 counts, and yeah, you want to nail the rookie. So this is the research I've done, from watching them, reading draft profiles, reading about, PR about them, and yeah, this is what I've come up with. So I look at whether I would field a bench or avoid, what the job security is out of 10, and whether they're a sub risk. And with sub risk, it's always hard to tell, especially when it was around a few years ago, but my memory doesn't serve me greatly on how players were subbed. So I'm not exactly sure how it will be used. Something we'll learn as we go on, but I don't think it'll be a massive deal because there might be injuries where players aren't subbed off, and we know if they're going to be subbed or not before the game. So anyway. Yeah, the mouse, this hand thing, will be the player that I'm talking about, or next to them. So first defender is Goda, 193k. I think he's an avoid because a little bit of an injury niggle in preseason, which isn't too bad for rookies, but hasn't shown an ability to accumulate highly, and they've thrown him at half forward in, I think, the second practice game, and also in a intra-club way back. So for me, that says uncertain of the role, expensive, could be a sub-risk, hasn't proven he has a great tank, but I think he could be okay, but I think there's better options, and I don't want him to be stuck at half forward or anything, so he's an avoid for me, but I think they'll play him. Tom Cole, I wouldn't go Tom Cole as a pick. West Coast, they've said they're trying to move away from this chip mark game style, and that's pretty much all we saw in the practice game, so if that goes away, I think that will hurt Cole, and his job is usually, he's more of a lockdown defender, so his job isn't really to get the ball, although he can take a few marks, but he's one, he could be okay, but not one I would like to pick, just a low upside pick, so not for me. Next is Jinbi, 172k, so I think he's fieldable, I think he's great job security, and I doubt they sub him because I think he was just about their best player in the practice game, even though his time on ground was really low, so that is a slight concern, but I would be fielding him. I think it's almost dangerous not to field him from what we've seen, and yeah, he looks fantastic, and he had that rapid development in his draft year, and looks like he's developed a lot more from the PR that we've heard at West Coast since joining the AFL list, so he's a tick, chuck him on your field. Connor McKenna is a hard one, so I've got him as a job security 6 and a field or bench. I would definitely prefer him on the bench, but we've got a few, like we got Cowan, Chesser, Wilmot, Jinbi, so there's a few. You ideally want a lot of these guys, so it's forced me to put McKenna on the field. I would definitely rather, as I said, rather on the bench, but he's played in the ones all preseason. He's playing halfback. They can rotate him on a wing if they want, but I think he'll be more halfback and Wilmot more wing. That's what's been happening at training from what I've read, and that's what I saw in the practice game. I did see Wilmot go a bit down back, but we'll get to that after. So he looks a bit underdone. It's not underdone, but he looks like he's missed a lot of footy, a little bit rusty, so I don't think you have to pick McKenna, but I think his upside is quite good, and if he can, he's 26 years old, so if he can get going, he's done 80 in the past, maybe he can do a 65, 70, and he'll make 150k if he can do that. A good sign was 87% time on ground in the preseason, so yeah, that's a tick for that. So he's on my field at the moment, but again, I'd rather bench. Max Michelini, lockdown defender, not a massive ball winner at all in juniors, and yeah, it's not his job to rebound, so I guess he can if it comes to him, but hasn't really shown it, and that's what I saw in the practice game. So I think he'll keep playing. There's a spot there for him with Luke Brown retiring, but not going to score enough, and he's actually not 123k. That's a mistake. He's like 135 or something. And next is Charlie Constable. So I have him as a job security as 5 out of 10, but it's a tough one because he needs to perform well. First of all, I think you want him on the field because he's going to get kick-ins and he can accumulate no problem. His issue is Powell and Weller come in, so I think you start him, I think you field him and deal with it if he gets dropped. So it's hard to put a number on his job security when I don't know for sure if he'll be dropped when the players come back, but there's a reasonable chance if he doesn't perform. So it's probably performance-based. Needs to show Gold Coast is a future piece, but I guess all that really matters in my opinion is pick him, I would field him, and deal with it after because the upside is too high with him. if it goes badly, it goes badly. So yeah, I don't think they will sub him because they don't really have any defenders at the moment. So probably look elsewhere. Next, I have Wilmot. I like him on the bench. I think he looks good. I think Lockie Neal did an interview today where I think, or maybe it was yesterday, where he said, you know, who are your youngsters that are going to take the next step? He sort of said Wilmot, bit of wing. I did see him a little bit half back, but mostly wing. Maybe he is a sub risk because their 22 is so strong. Like, who do you sub out? But I like what I've seen. He's on my bench, and he's been on my bench for the entire preseason. So I was happy with him. Probably didn't have the greatest practice games, but he was pretty good in the finals, and they seem to like him, and he's been playing in the ones, so a tick for Wilmot. Next, I've got Chesser. I think bench only. Job security. I think they'll put games into him. It's just he's had an interrupted preseason. He's missed so much footy. Does he slow down? Is he going to be able to cope with high? You know, he's competing against other players that have had full preseason, so he's on the back foot already. And I can see him being subbed if he can't get into the game, because in the second practice game, I thought he was quite awful until they put him around the ball. So I don't love this pick, but I guess you're forgiving of at least his second year first round pick. Just kind of see how he goes and hope that he starts to come good. But yeah, I think he had a good practice game. He kicked 2 goals in one of the practice games or the intro or something like that. But yeah, could be a sub risk. I definitely wouldn't want to field him unless he can prove it. But he's on my mid bench, but like I feel like he's expendable, but it's a hard one to read when you've missed like 3 years worth of footy over the past 4 years or whatever it is. Moving on to McVee, so I've got him as an avoid. I think they really like him and they rate him, and I think he'll keep playing. They got a few injuries down back, so May's not going to play early. Salem's due round 2 or 3, I think. So what does that mean for McVee? I honestly don't know. And they gave him a lockdown job on Dusty. He wasn't a high accumulator in juniors, but he did get 14 touches in the first practice game, so I guess that's okay. And yeah, his job security, I've got the asterisk there, like Constable, because when players come in, does he hold? I'm not sure. I think if Hibbard's not there, then I think he holds his spot, because I think he's in for Michael Hibbard. And yeah, just because these lists are so strong, he could be subbed out, I guess, but not really sure. But I've got him avoid for now. I think last resort bench on your mid bench. So because I think he'll play if he's in for Hibbard, but I haven't seen the team sheets yet. I'm doing this the day before, so just because games start, I want to, people want to settle their teams. Next, I have Cowan on this list, so I do like Cowan. I think he might be forced to play a bit more defensive, but in the Tassie League, 26 touches a game, could accumulate no problem. I think 100 AFL fantasy points a game. Thought he was okay in the practice game. Did get the feeling that he was passing Chincotta. Yeah, does the basics well and has some nice attributes to be a good player. He's got a really long leg on him, so I think they like him. I think they want to persist with him, and yeah, I think he'll keep playing. I think there's a few like dodgy ones on the bench, like Lob. I think he's more wing though, and then Chincotta could, he's kind of ready to go. He's 26, so I think they'll persist with him. Not 100% sure, but yeah, he'll get early opportunity, and if he plays well, I don't see why he doesn't stay in. So that is the defenders. Okay, next one, we have a lot of plays here in the forward line. So Liam Henry sounds like he's a winger. I've got him as an avoid because of his price. If it was base price, I'd pick him on the bench. Showed an ability to rack it up, but I think he's always been sort of inconsistent, and yeah, outside players tend to dominate preseason games, and it's much harder during the season. So I think it's an unnecessary risk. I could see this pick actually being good, but I think it's hard to justify over Sheezel when you get the job security and the high talent. So yeah, wing roll isn't kind of the best, but it's not like the absolute worst for a cheap player. But for 200k, you probably want a bit better of a role, and yeah, he every chance to be sub as well. So I think he's fringe 22, but had a good preseason. Bit of hypocrisy there because I've got Sheezel on as a field or bench option, and I see a lot of people with him on the field because he can have some massive games, and it's hard to tell with Sheezel because from watching his preseason games, I think they like him around the ball. They weren't afraid to throw him on the ball. They weren't afraid to throw him down back. But I think predominantly he's going to be a forward because that's where he does his damage. I I'm not interested in fielding him. I can see him having a big game, especially against West Coast in round 1. And yeah, great job security. And I feel like he's already one of their best players, so I don't think he'll be subbed. But I just feel if things don't go his way and he's stuck forward, there's every chance of a poor score. But yeah, I think it'll be very much up and down scoring. So if you miss a few big ones and you don't have him, just leave it, I think. It's going to be too hard to upgrade a rookie to 200k, and you'll probably start getting, it'll be up and down. So if you get him on the up, he might drop a bad one when you bring him in or something like that. Just how it seems to be. So Sheezels, if you can get him, I guess you can. I'm very happy with Flanders F6, so I haven't bothered there. But if there was no Flanders, I'd probably go Sheezel F6, but we have Flanders, so that's my route. Next one is McLean. Definitely thought he was a shoe-in for us, but role is terrible. Doesn't look great, and they didn't give him mid-time. And I guess he's too risky to field based on what we saw, in my opinion, but he can come good. We know he's so much better than what he did in the preseason games. So apparently he's had a really good preseason as well, and he looked really good in the final last year. But the role doesn't look good, and look, avoid is probably a bit harsh, but it's only because of the price and you having that much money on the bench. I think people, trying to rejig with Yo and, pulling money off the bench to fix up Elliot Yo. So I think it's fine if you want to pick him. I would like him on the bench personally. I can't get to it, but yeah. And also the job security probably isn't a sure thing either. I dare say Arthur Jones, if he was fit, might have taken a spot from him, but I don't know. Maybe he needs to work his way into it. So yeah, pick him if you want on your bench. If you can't, don't worry about it. We have lots of good options, but yeah, it could hurt you if he comes good. Ben King, key forward, safe. Terrible scoring in the past. It's a no. I think it's slight interrupted preseason coming from the ACL. Just yeah, too many things against him. Pedler, no. I think he looks quite good and he's an exciting prospect for the Crows, but mostly forward. I don't see any mid-time early, if at all, very minimal, but maybe later in the year. And yeah, his durability has been one of the worst in the AFL. Probably him and Chess are two worst players for durability over the past 2 or 3 years. So he's an avoid, just too expensive. If he was 123k, like fantasy, his base price, I have him on my bench in that format and sports deck, but not for Supercoach. Philippou, I bench avoid just because with his role isn't super great at the moment. So I don't think he won that on the field, and he was also cramping up a little bit during the game, but I think they'll play him. I think they like him, but the role isn't going to be good. And yeah, I don't know if he can run out games really well. If he's cramping up a bit, they might sub him. I don't know, but that tends to happen like late in the 4th quarter. So I won't be picking Philippou, but he's a star talent and very excited for Saints supporters. Josh Bruce, I have him as an avoid because they have the 4 tolls up forward. So if they play Bruce down back, they could always throw a toll down back. I have him actually low sub risk, but actually he could be a sub if they choose to. Maybe this should be moderate actually, just because they got, they can throw Norton or Darcy back at any point, and that probably makes Bruce a little bit redundant. So I don't know. I don't even know if he plays round 1. And especially I don't have the timeline on Gardner. If Gardner is coming back soon, then I certainly wouldn't be touching Bruce. So he's an avoid, but I think he can score because he has shown capabilities to intercept. But yeah, keep an eye out for Gardner's or the PI out of the Dogs. But you can see a few moving pieces, and Bruce is straight out. Menzie I have as an avoid, just too expensive. If 123k, I think he's a good bench option. A small forward, mature age, looks good. I think they rate him. But yeah, you can't justify that price on the bench for a small forward, so it's a pass. Green looks like a great option. Good job security, I think. Kicked 78 goals in 25 games in the VFL. Looks really, really good. Really impressed with him. I think he'll have a few good games and spike in cash. And yeah, big tick. Put him on your bench. I like him. Larry, I honestly don't know. So Larry was named as a debutant, and I believe in the VFL he's been playing forward. He was taken in the same draft as Bowie, so this is his 3rd year. Had a few injuries earlier in his career. I honestly have no idea what they're doing with him because they've announced it, and he scored 10 in the practice. I didn't see the Supercoach score, but he scored 10 fantasy on Larry. Scored 10 fantasy, so in about 50+% game time. So I don't really have enough to go on with Lowry. Or Lowry, I don't know. Laurie, probably. Yeah, if you can help me out here, I'm sure. But I don't know his job security either. I know they have a few defender injuries and maybe they throw some players down back and put him forward. I honestly have no idea. I know Fritsch might be, I think Fritsch is supposed to play. And they got Chandler there up as well. So I'm not exactly sure what's going on. So he's an avoid for me just because I don't have a good read on it. Sturt was pretty good. A bit of forward, bit of higher forward, but no Jackson. Izzy go out for Jackson. I know they got Tracy down there. Tabana, I'm forgetting someone. Amiss, I don't know if Amiss plays round 1. Yeah, Jackson as well. So I don't really know. I don't have a good read on this either. But he's been very injury prone. But he has shown games. He has shown a lot of talent there in the past. He could make a bit of money. He could have some spike games. So I don't think he's the worst bench option. Out of him and Chandler, I think Sturt's ceiling is higher, but I read Chandler's had a really, really strong preseason, and David King did say on Chandler that we'll see a lot of him this year. So I don't know if he has intel, but that's what I heard. So with these two here, it's yeah. Well, Chandler is a medium forward, I think. I've got him bench and avoid. I don't think they're going to hurt you if you don't have him, but the thing is, yeah, like a last resort bench, I think you could go one of them. I don't think it's too bad. So Sturt probably high ceiling, so maybe go with him. But I think. Yeah, honestly, I honestly have no idea, to be honest. Pick whoever you prefer. I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, not much help there. Comben, avoid, low ceiling, key forward, injury prone, forget it, bad team. Alwyn Davey, should specify this is Alwyn Davey, not Jaden Davey. Make sure you do not put Jaden Davey on your bench. Double check that because he's done his ACL. But Alwyn Davey Jr., he looked really good. They were showing him doing extras in a documentary, which was pretty cool, doing some extra runs at like 7, like on sunset when everyone went home. Seems like he's pretty hard work, I guess. Looked pretty good in the practice game. Yeah, can move up the ground a bit, but predominantly a small forward. So I have him on the bench, but I think you don't have to pick him at all because I think he scored about 60 fantasy in NAB League. And yeah, I don't know if his tank is any good. It said it wasn't great in these. He scored 3 points in the 4th quarter, and he draft profile says endurance needs a bit of work, so I'm a bit worried about that. But I think the talent is there. I think they'd be silly not to play him, so I put him at a 7 for job security. And yeah, I think he's okay for bench, but I don't love it, to be honest. I think there's better out there. I actually have him, so maybe I'm not too sure, to be honest. Would I take Davey over these guys? I think maybe he has a bit better job security, so probably, but probably scores worse than both of them. But I guess DPP as well, which is nice. Noah Long, avoid, small forward, bad team. I haven't really seen enough of him. I just got avoid, could be sub, could be a sub risk as well. Cam Needy looks really good. I think he could be a future piece for the Saints, but key forward, they got Membry coming back in, a whole bunch of tolls slowly coming through, so just wouldn't pick him, and I don't think he'll be subbed because they have no toll, so why would they sub a toll out? But yeah, moving on. Midfielders, so yeah, there's not many players left, so only 2 ruckmen I've got on the list, but yeah, Ashcroft is a lock, don't need to say anything. McKenzie, I've got him field or bench just because his draft profile says he's inconsistent, so I do wonder if that kind of shows up from week to week. But he looked really good, really clean with the ball, really composed, knows where to find it on the inside and outside from what I saw. I like him, he's good, he's very good, and he got, I think it was 70+% CBAs, or 70+, yeah. I don't know if he gets that in the actual stuff. I think probably be 20% lower, I would imagine. But he looked really good. I'll field him round 1, and I'll field him until he proves that he's not fieldable, which will probably be 2 or 3 bad scores. So we'll go with McKenzie. So I've locked him in. Hollins. I think I've got this price wrong. I can't remember. Hollins is a weird one. So he's playing wing, but they have Walsh to come back in around round 3 or 4. So I got Lockie O'Brien emergency as well. Does Walsh come in, and then do they rotate like Walsh and Chera on the wing instead of Hollins? Maybe they push him to sub or something. Outside player, and I don't think you want him on field just because there's better out there. I think the bar for on-field options is pretty high this year. So in terms of cheap guys, so I've got him bench. I don't think you have to pick him though. I think this should be bench avoid. If I had my time again, I'd write bench avoid. But I was impressed with him. He looks pretty good as one of the biggest, apparently the biggest tank in the draft. So he looks okay, but I'm not picking him, put it that way. But yeah, bench if you want. I think he's on my fantasy bench at the moment. I'm not sure, but a bit different for fantasy. Vital, I think he'll. And again, this is another error. This should be red here, but Vital scored like a 180 in VFL. But the problem with him is Winhager and Seb Ross are due back within the first. I think Winhager within the first round if he doesn't play round 1, and then Ross sounds like round 2 or 3 or something like that. I don't know why they would persist with Seb Ross. I think they're wasting their time there, to be honest. Not dissing him as a player, but in terms of the future, he's one I think you'd want to move on because he's probably not a future piece. But nonetheless, Vital hasn't shown a lot of outside game, but his inside game, his pressure is excellent, tackling is good. But yeah, in the practice game, he only played because Winhager was a late out. So that tells me that he's probably going to start as a sub if they play him when they get their players back, unless he can somehow force his way in. But he's playing for his career. It's a high risk, high reward sort of pick. I'll correct it if I have to. But I think the job security is too risky at this point, and it's kind of hard to get him in at the price. So I'll be passing on Vital, but he could easily make more money than anyone here but Ashcroft. Will Phillips, I've got him field or bench, and I don't think I sub him. Will Phillips probably didn't pass the eye test as much as we'd hoped. Bit fumbly, poor kicking, but it was against the Dogs. And the week before that, I think he didn't even crack 20 touches, but they should give him a decent amount of mid-time. He's a high pick, and apparently he's been good in the preseason. So certainly round 1, I think you could field him against West Coast. I've got him on my bench, although I don't mind him for this week on the field. But I feel a little bit safer on the bench just because it didn't really excite me. But the role should be good and the talent should be there. So see how he goes. That is Phillips. And then Oscar Baker. Well, Waitman is out now for the time being with a groin. And he was subbed on because he wasn't supposed to play until Waitman was a late out in the second practice game. So Baker played really, really well when he wasn't supposed to. And now Waitman's out. There should be a spot for him. I mean, just trying to put 2 and 2 together here. So I think you chuck him on your bench. He can play half forward or wing. And I think Dogs have kind of flirted with a lot of those half forward wing plays, and they just rotate him and they don't really excel at the role. Maybe a Hunter at his best, but other than that, like you got McNeil's, you Scott, McLean, they're trying through there. I don't really know what they're doing in that sort of role. And if Baker can perform like that, although it was against North, like he did in the second practice game, scored like a 110, and then he should be able to hold his spot. So he's on my bench. And like moderate sub risk, and like he's probably there, I don't know, 20 to 25 range in terms of best player. So for that reason, I think he could, he's probably 1 or 2 bad games away from being out of the team. Then we have the ruck. So radically, I have him as a bench. I don't really want him on the field. I think there's good enough options that we can field over him. I can see him doing a 55 average, maybe a 60 because of his good intercepting capabilities. But if the intercepts don't come, he's not going to go out looking for the ball. The ball needs to come to him mostly. I think his job security is pretty good. I've read mixed things on it, so I'm not 100% sure. But, well, Jack Henry's out. I think they need him done back, and they kind of rated him in the preseason. But Geelong are trying to get communication out of Geelong in preseason is like talking to a brick wall. You get nothing out of it. Anyway, I don't think they'll sub him because I think structurally, I don't think you sub key defenders off. That sounds weird to me. Unless they're running 3 and they want to think they're too tall. I don't think he'll be subbed anyway. And then McAndrew, I don't know if he's playing or not. I know Luke Parker said that he rated him today, I think it was Parker or Mills. They asked, "Oh, who's the young guy that's been coming through?" And he said Andrew. Problem with McAndrew is I haven't seen the Swans injury list, but I know Amadi and McLean are injured at the moment. They could easily come in and help ruck. Laddams is fit, even though he's playing through knee tendonitis. He's going to be the #1 ruck. I don't know how long Hickey's out for. Again, I'd love to see an injury list here, but he might only be relieving ruck and not going to score much. I didn't see a whole lot from McAndrew when he wasn't rucking, so I think he's in a void and possibly a correction for whatever reason he starts solo rucking. So yeah, and poor job security just because they got a bunch of other guys who can relief. Like maybe like Sam Reid's always injured, but if he's fit, they can use him to relief ruck. So I think a little bit too risky. It needs to be first ruck to be considered. So that is my rookie guide. I've been a bit better at answering questions in the comments section over the past week. I do apologize, I haven't really got to a lot this preseason, but now that we've finished the member stuff, I feel a bit more comfortable answering questions, whereas I gave more of my time to our members stuff. So that's it from me. Yeah, leave any questions and I'll try to get to them. Remember, I'm not a draft expert as well, but I try my best, and usually I have a pretty decent hit rate with these videos over the years. Nonetheless, thank you for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next video.